Welcome everyone. Again, the operations bundle, connect project management to closeout with the ACC operations bundle. My name is Alan DeLuce, again on the engagement engineering team, kind of solutions consultant. Vince?
I'm Vince Danielli, team manager here for Imagine It, and primarily our construction team manager. So welcome everyone, and hopefully today you'll see some of the benefits that are included in this operations bundle, and we'll go through the details of what's included in the package. Alan, actually, you've got the agenda on the next slide, so I'll let you go through that.
For sure. So today we're going to take a look at the ACC as a whole, the entire ecosystem. We'll take a look at what's in the operations bundle in particular, and we will talk about submittal to closeout workflows, and we'll jump to Vince and get into the products, specifically into Pype, and we'll talk through some of these workflows here in a minute. But for right now, let's get started and talk about the ACC as a whole. So if we want to start here moving left to right, and you may or may not, if you've ever had jumped on conversations with us here at Imagine It, you may have seen this very slide, but we start from left to right, and on the design side for your BIM and VDC workflows, design, coordination efforts, et cetera, and of course, building off of what is Docs, the common data environment of the construction cloud. Moving into, as we move across the screen, the BIM Collaborate environment, where we're utilizing the cloud to do our design and coordination effort, takeoff. But again, today we're going to focus in Build, and specifically the integrations and the utility of where we can connect and engage with Pype AutoSpecs and Closeout for connecting these project management workflows through the project, throughout the project lifecycle.
Yeah, one thing I like to point out here, and the reason that we highlighted project management and project closeout is obviously those are the primary focuses of the operations bundle and what's included in the operations bundle, but you do get access to Autodesk Build with the operations bundle. So even though we have the two boxes highlighted in green there, you do get cost management, the quality and safety features of Build as well, in addition to the document control and document management. So yeah, this is just kind of a broad picture of all of the different offerings under the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but the primary focus here today for the operations bundle, it's really in project management and project closeout.
And at some point in the past, Vince and I and others have done presentations on the other bundles. So if you are interested, you can go and check out our website to go see presentations on some of that. And as well, we'll note ways to follow up with us at the end to do deeper dives. All right, so how does the ACC benefit us in the entire process from the beginning to handover? Well, what do we need to think about in today's environment, and what are some of the problems that we're dealing with, and obviously the realities? We're all living through time waste and the trouble that we have with our labor environments and supply chain and all of the things that we are dealing with on our day-to-day that give us cause us struggles. The struggle is real, and rework and things like that, and just communication and having the connected workflow of the office to our shop to the field. This is where these communication effort, the communication breakdown can be streamlined and become much more, we strengthen the workflow from beginning to end. And again, these solutions that we'll talk about and see today really facilitate that. But ultimately, when we talk about Pype and the obviously AutoSpecs through handover and closeout, what some of the problems that we deal with is just where is that information going, all that data, and we develop all this information through the life cycle of the building life cycle and the construction process and design. But then where does it go, and is it really captured, and is there any utility to it? And that's where the tools that we're going to talk about come into play and can really facilitate the utilization of that data. And so kind of at a top tier, what is the value prop for the Autodesk operations bundle? Well, basically, like you will see and like we're saying, it's this streamlined cloud-based workflow that helps us to streamline the capture of information, be more organized, and have this streamlined sharing capability across the entire Autodesk portfolio. So what is in the operations bundle? And again, we're going to focus really on we're focusing on build. Of course, we all the docs being the common data environment of build, focusing on the build. And of course, with build, you get, like Vince was talking about, we get all of those additional workflows. But really what we want to focus on is the organization of our data and capturing all the information so that when we introduce Pype, we're able to go and capture all of that information, and we're in doing so from specifications, in capturing that information and being able to utilize the tools in Pype with the OCR technology, AI, being able to read documents. We're reducing risk, and we're reducing some of the issues where things go missed. And when we miss information, we have to come back and follow up. That's always going to cost us time, and time is money. So we need to focus on the fact that these two and one of the main things also with Pype, you take your specifications, you organize them, you break them out, you're then able to distribute them. They push downstream, and what we'll be talking about workflow in a minute. But ultimately, we're connecting Pype to Build for the submittal workflows. And very quickly through here, just kind of focus on how these products work and how they operate when we start talking about the bundling. So when we do these bundles, we're able to go and leverage account-based pricing with these. And why would we want to go with account-based pricing? It's because we get distributed access to our entire enterprise. So there's reasons for this, and we've got the right tools together in the right solutions in this bundle. And again, it allows us to do what they say, this kind of standardized data, connected, cloud-based automation, and streamline.
So really quick look at the workflow here that we'll be discussing today with the solutions provided. Essentially, when we receive a spec book, we can upload that spec book to AutoSpecs. As Alan mentioned, there's some really nice tools in there that use OCR recognition. So if we upload a PDF, it does accept Excel and spreadsheet format to create your submittal registry. But using AutoSpecs, it will break down and format that PDF, that spec book, into a much more manageable format so that you can assign responsible contractors to submittal items and really do the pre-work or the prep work on your submittal log before you push it into your submittal approval processes, which is taken care of in Build. So we have an integration from AutoSpecs, and I'll show you it in my demo portion. Just recently, Autodesk has integrated Pype AutoSpec directly into the ACC, which is a great update. But then through Build, we go through our typical submittal review workflow process, so approval process, so we can close and distribute submittal items. And then using Pype Closeout, we can then import that submittal log back into Closeout to manage it. And essentially, it gives us a dashboard to see what percentage complete our documentation and our items for that handover package are. So highlight some areas in closeout and how that manages the documentation and the closeout data, in which then we can package up a turnover package using another product called Pype eBinder and share that with an owner, which in turn leads us to generating more money. We're spending less time having to chase down documents and hitting appropriate deadlines, being able to track this whole process in this one streamlined effort. So just a little bit more detail.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Now this is just this. We have the chevron, and then this is a little bit. This is obviously some wording to it, and again, you'll be receiving this, and this is just an illustration of the workflow.
Yeah, so a little bit more detailed information on the steps, the detail of that workflow. As I mentioned, receive the spec book, either PDF or Excel, upload that to AutoSpec. AutoSpec does the OCR recognition to create your smart register. We can then edit and manage our submittal registry through Smart Register, so basically preparing it for upload into Build. We export it to Build, upload it, in Build, all of those submittal line items that we select from Smart Register can then be imported into Build and managed through that submit, review, approve, and close process through Build. And then using Pype Closeout, we can import those submittals from Build and track the progress of our documentation and anything that is incomplete that requires closeout documentation. So it gives us, as a general contractor, it gives us good insight and oversight over all of the required documentation that we need for that final closeout. And then, as I mentioned before, we can bundle that into our turnover package through eBinder and share that out with an owner through a link. They can access it through eBinder through the web view and get to all of the documentation that's included in those the submittal closeout. So they also have the option to download a nice package PDF with all of these links to the documents in it. Okay.
Okay, and a little bit about each one of these.
I won't spend too much time. What's that, Ellen?
No, just a little bit about each one of these. Yep.
Yeah, so all of the different products, just to give everyone an overview of the sort of everything that's included in the operations bundle. Pype was a company that was acquired by Autodesk because it, as many of you know, has some great tools like AutoSpecs, Closeout, eBinder. And over time, we're seeing these tools integrated directly into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. But yeah, next slide. Specifically, and I won't spend too much time talking about each of these, I'd rather show it. But in general, AutoSpec is that really smart OCR tool that allows us to break down our spec into a submittal log that we can manage through a nice interface, edit it, create revisions, update it, and then push that into Build. Next.
And one thing to point out, just if you've ever dealt with this in manual processes, and anecdotally, I have dealt with both colleagues and had to deal with it personally. The time frame, just the amount of time that you are reducing in order to develop the submittal log and be organized and develop that information and reduce the amount of risk is going to save you potentially days worth of work on the administrative and those tedious tasks of developing that submittal registry.
SmartPlans is another tool. We didn't really highlight it too much in this presentation because it's a bit disconnected from the submittal and closeout processes. But SmartPlan is another tool that's included in the bundle that takes information from your construction documents. You can create hyperlinks to your other construction drawings, and if there are schedules or keynote information that you want to extract directly from plan, SmartPlan allows it or gives you that solution to basically extract information from those PDFs, those documents.
And you're really just building on top of the OC, the specification extraction, the information being extracted, and you're kind of covering your backside in additional places so that you have more information, and you're making sure that the information is extracted from the plans as well.
And then the closeout tools, as I mentioned before, this gives us a nice dashboard and interface to manage and check the progress of our closeout documents. So this is really just a way that we can quickly communicate with contractors and consultants that are involved in our project and make sure we're hitting them on their requirements. So if they need to submit a document for closeout by a certain date, we can push out emails and check the progress of the overall closeout effort. And then again, eBinder is just a nice utility that packages up all of that documentation and information for us in one comprehensive environment, and we can share that link out to an owner or download a PDF that has all of the links to the documents that we've included in a folder structure or folder directory. So it's really nice and organized, and it uses a lot of the same information, categories or spec information that we have from our submittals. And there are different templates out of the box that we can use to create that folder structure that really just make it organized and manageable for someone that is receiving that turnover package.
And at the end of projects, as we are attempting to close out, it reduces headaches to have to go and hustle and gather information, again, with being able to maintain the flow of data that you've produced through the life cycle from the beginning, getting into all the tasks you've done with AutoSpecs and so on. You're buttoning up and you're making sure you captured all the information, and it never, we always have to cover our backside and check ourselves, but at the same time, this can get us much further down the road, much more quickly.
Great.
All
right, so I'll share my screen. Hopefully that was smooth. All right. So I want to highlight this workflow, how these tools connect. We're not going to go through all of the different modules of Build. Obviously, we have a very, not a narrow focus, but a focus on the operations bundle. So most of that has to do with the exchange of information from the spec to the submittal, and really where that starts. If I jump to my first tab here, with Pype AutoSpec, and I think we've done this in previous demonstrations and talked about AutoSpec a little bit more in detail as a standalone product in itself. But the great thing about these bundles is that there are connected workflows through the products that are provided in these packages. So with AutoSpec, typically you'll receive a spec book or a specification from the design team, and you can upload it into a project in AutoSpecs. Just recently, as I mentioned, Autodesk is integrated. This is one of really the first tool that was integrated from Pype directly into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So didn't have a tab open, but I'll show how that looks. Just really quick. I think I put it into, just set this project up last week, so bear with me 1 second. So a lot of the same look and feel of the interface from the typical Pype AutoSpec. So I logged into this through Pype.io. It does allow you to log in using your Autodesk ID as long as you have the entitlement to the software. And it can connect to your BIM 360 and your unified platform projects and Build. So traditionally, the way we used to show this was right through the Pype website. And essentially, when you go to create a project in AutoSpecs, you would just add your project, you fill out your project name, project number. I won't go through all of this in detail, but the third step in the process is to upload the spec and validate the spec. So if you have a PDF, you can just drag and drop it into this project creation mode. It's a nice little wizard. It does take a little bit of time depending on how large the spec is to process and go through all of that OCR recognition to start to extract different information from the different sections of the spec to create those submittal items. Then there is a period when you create the project where you can refine, you can basically review what it extracted, manually adjust some information, but ultimately the last step, once you've gone through sort of that refinement of the spec and validate that, yes, this information is accurate and is pulling the right sections, we can then generate the submittal registry directly from the PDF. So instead of waiting around for a spec to process, I've already got one preset up here, one that we've used before in demonstration is this LTU Residence Hall East project. So it's kind of a public spec data set that we use. And basically by uploading that PDF, it gives us a breakdown submittal registry that through this Smart Register tool in AutoSpecs, we can go through every line item. So you can see here, it gives us a spec number, a section number, a spec name, what paragraph it's referencing, a subheader, and what submittal type it's tied to. So it's extracting all of this information from the spec as well as a description. And even from here, sorry, some of the go-to dashboard things in the way. All right, we can set a target date for that submittal approval and assign a subcontractor to it. So you can take the time here and you can do bulk editing to the submittal registry. Part of this, and again, not going into a ton of detail of each one of the products, but as we take the time and refine the Smart Register, at some point when we're ready to export this over to Build, there's this nice little export button. Autodesk Build is an option. Now this is compatible with all different types of formats, and a lot of our construction management tools allow us to take something like a formatted Excel spreadsheet and upload it, Procore, Aconex. But in our example using Build, we actually, even just with Build, have 3 different options of how we want to generate or export this Smart Register into the Autodesk product. So we can either do that directly to our submittal area in a project that we pick from Build, as long as the project's been created. We can push the registry directly into the files area. So that's really more like Autodesk Docs if we wanted to push, I think it's still a spreadsheet into Docs as a file, or we can export it directly to Excel. So really, if we're talking about this being a connected workflow, ideally we would want to push that into submittals. You can see here it's connecting to my Autodesk ID. If I say allow that, then from here I should be able to pick my Imagine It hub and specify exactly which project I want to push this into the submittal module. So I think, let's see.
You could go to RG.
Which one? Well, I don't want to
Yeah,
push it
it's all
into
good.
a new one. It'll take some time to create all those line items. I know we've done this in the past with Ellen's project, this build project here, and I already have that open. So taking this, the Smart Register, pushing it directly into a project is an option. And let me not complete that, but I'll show you some of the steps here. So if we take the Smart Register, now this is one thing in the past, and I've checked this, this is definitely improved. In the past, the submittal types that we get from the spec don't always match up with our submittal types in the project that we're trying to push them to. And in theory, if you created, so you could jump back and forth between browser tabs to make sure that you're creating all of the correct type categories in your build project to match up to the spec information from that you're extracting in AutoSpecs. However, that never worked perfectly. It seemed like you were able to somewhat map them one-to-one, but in certain cases, even though in theory, it should have worked. It wasn't. But now that this is integrated into the ACC, with your entitlement to AutoSpecs, and again, this just got integrated like a week and a half ago into ACC, you have all of the same options that we were seeing in the Pype AutoSpecs. Now it's just Build AutoSpecs or ACC AutoSpecs, including Smart Register. And one really nice thing here is when we go to push that, obviously we're already in the project. We're already in the project that we potentially are processing those submittal line items. And we can publish those directly from this AutoSpecs module into Build. And when you go through this process, I'm sure if any of you have worked in Build already through the sheet extraction or the sheet tools, you know that there's like a wizard that sort of walks you through step by step for uploading your sheets. Well, very similarly in the this AutoSpecs module here in the ACC, this is where we can do that mapping from our submittal types. So as long as the submittal area in Build is set up with the correct types, we can simply drag and drop those types from what we extract from the spec into the proper areas that we've already pre-designated or created in the Build area. If we don't have something, so for example here, I think I did this before, let's see, we've got like coordination drawings. Well, in Build, in my submittal area in Build, let's see, I've got shop drawings, but I don't have anything labeled coordination drawings. Well, let's see if I have anything that might match up better. We can always go back to, and I'll just duplicate this tab really quick. Back out of here. We can always go back into Build. In submittals. And for our, types, submittal types, I can add here coordination drawings. And this might seem like a lot of work, but it really is important because when we get to the closeout phase, it's using these submittal types to really organize the different closeout submittals that are required for that turnover. So we do want to take the time to make sure that we're mapping these appropriately in the system, because once the submittal is created and Build and we go through the approval process, it's going to maintain that type and that data that's associated to the submittal. So when we do go into closeout, I'll show with the extraction or the import and closeout, it's using these spec sections. So you might have O&M manuals that would fall under a closeout submittal item. But if I create this type, coordination drawings, let's see if it did it live here. Fingers crossed. I might have to refresh this page. Hey, look at that. I didn't even have to drag and drop it. It just automatically knew based on the text that those two things matched up. So that's just an example of making sure that you have the correct submittal types designated on the Build side, so that from your spec, there's a bucket for them to go into. And then clearly in some cases, if we have a submittal type called a certificate on the Build side and our spec has two different sections, one labeled certificates and one labeled certifications, maybe those group into the same area, so we can drag and drop those into the same sort of bucket for organization. So the other tools in Pype aren't fully integrated into the ACC yet. This is, again, the first one. AutoSpecs is the first one integrated directly into ACC, but I anticipate that Closeout, eBinder, hopefully are coming soon. And when you go to process this, I was going to not take the time to process these as submittal items, but I don't need to. Let me close.
And there was there's one question that we can kind of field at the moment. Is Pype functionality going to be, and I'll just throw it up, included, quote unquote, included with ACC Build in the future. I will say the most likely case is that if we go to when we enter a project, we go to the product picker, and as we become a project member, you can turn on the various modules for the project teams. I will just venture to say that it is not going to be integrated anytime in soon. But with that said, as you know, please always bring these questions to us because we're always having discussions with Autodesk on roadmap items.
Yeah, and actually, in terms of AutoSpecs, so it definitely is a separate product that's purchased as an add-on to the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So it is not a module that will be included directly with Build, but that's really the beauty of the operations bundle, is that you get access to all of these Pype products in that bundle. And for these specific products right now, at least I can speak to AutoSpecs because we know that that is a separate entitlement. It's a separate license outside of Build, similar to Takeoff. For those of you that are familiar with Takeoff, it's definitely tied to the same systems, and it can exchange information through docs, and you can use the same documents and data that's stored in your project directly, but it absolutely is a different entitlement currently. Actually, this one, yeah, oh, I'm back in your Build project when AutoSpecs wasn't available, so it's not showing up yet.
And that's something fair to illustrate. We, again, like Vince said earlier, the AutoSpecs literally just kind of populated into, we created a new project recently, and it was available in the product picker whenever we're turning that on, so to speak, for a new project. So as you create new projects, you will see it. You will see it in the product picker.
Yeah, one interesting thing, and I'm not sure what's happening on the back end here. I definitely have an entitlement to AutoSpec, but when I activated it, it showed up as a 30-day trial. So it's still very early on. I'm sure they're working out some of the details with the entitlements and the access to it. But as you can see, and maybe we have very unique licensing because we're a partner. It's more like a name user license rather than account based, but I'm sure for those of you that have account based licensing for operations, you won't have to worry about it running as a trial. So anyway, getting into the submittal area. So yeah, it's great. The new feature will push those, publish them directly in the same project that you're working in. The one that we set up in the past, we just process the AutoSpec, the smart register from the Pype website, AutoSpecs, into this project. And initially what it does is it takes all of those submittal items that you refine, and you assign target dates and contractors to from Smart Register, and it imports them into Build initially as a draft. So all of these items live as a draft, and then as a submittal manager in your projects, you can click on these items and start the process. If you had assigned a contractor, it wouldn't be a draft, it would be an open item with the responsible contractor. If we left that blank on the Pype side, then it comes in as a draft, in which case we would have to assign the contractor to it, the due date for the submittal, review, and approval. And once that's created, we go through the typical submittal approval process and Build. At the end of that, I'll say and I think we did a sample where we had one approved. So it goes through the typical workflow, tracks the markups or the comments through that review process. When you finally close and distribute that submittal, it's in Build as a closed submittal item. So kind of all of that approval process is done through Build, which then leads us to, if we've taken the time, and maybe we're at like 50% approval for our submittals and there's still 50 of them left. Well, that's okay. We can, as long as the initial items are there, when we get into Pype Closeout, and again, on Pype Closeout, I just created another project named it the same, Residence Hall East. And one thing I should show, and today was a bad day for this. I think the ACC is having some problems, which probably a lot of you are aware of. But in order to create your closeout dashboard or your closeout submittals, you can do this a number of ways. So probably what we should have done, just to populate this now that I think of it, from Alan's project that he has set up here in Build, we could have gone into our submittal log area, go back here, and just exported all of these to Excel. So picked all of our open items, or open and closed, export these to Excel, and then on the closeout side, we could have imported them in via Excel. The way this is supposed to work with Build, that connected functionality, is you're supposed to be able to pick your company and the project, and then it's going to import all of your submittal items from your Build project into Closeout. So for some reason, and it might be with our licensing that something's happening here, but with the operations bundle, your company hub should show up there. You can pick your projects that you have, your submittals, and it's going to then create a separate dashboard or a separate log area for the closeout submittals, which then we can either manually associate or upload documents, or if there already are approved documents attached to the closed and distributed submittals from the Build side, it's going to automatically mark those as approved with the correct documentation. We did this manually. I just uploaded the spec in here as a PDF, and it did all the OCR. So every submittal item that we have in here technically is just an open submittal item. But through this module, you can attach DWGs, PDFs. You can look at what the requirement is for that specific spec. So there's a description that gets extracted here. And one of the examples we did, Ellen, what was the number again? It was like
2357.
2357. Oh,
and let's take just a quick sidebar. So a couple questions, good questions. Just to kind of clarify. So can you open up a new, maybe not cancel it. Can you open up a new tab, Vince?
Sure.
So yeah, can you log? I don't want you to log out. So let's answer this. So the question is, what is this? What are we seeing here with Pype? Well, Autodesk acquired Pype, and Pype is the company. We'll just call Pype the company, and Pype is composed of these modules. So if you go to the products right there, you can see that the modules of Pype are AutoSpecs, SmartPlans, Closeout, and eBinder. So that's the makeup. That's all of the tools within the Pype umbrella. And so with that said, it is a product that, as Vince has just illustrated, it is now fully above the bar. It is fully, quote unquote, fully integrated into ACC Build, and allows.
I would be careful to say it's fully integrated.
Fully, okay, fair enough.
AutoSpecs is integrated, and currently it's in beta. The
fair
other
enough.
Products here, SmartPlans, Closeout, eBinder, have not been integrated directly into the ACC yet. But if probably most of you are aware, when Autodesk acquires a company or acquires technology, they're going to do their best to take the best parts of that technology and integrate it into their solution. So it's, I would say it's a matter of time before we start seeing some of these other things integrated into Build. There is a lot of overlap between SmartPlans and what Build already natively does with things like, sheet hyperlinking and versioning and things like that. So we might not fully see all of the same functions that are included in these other products that Pype supported prior to Autodesk acquiring them. But for the major parts, the AutoSpec probably being most utilized one, time saving, that's already in beta. It's happening. So just keep that in mind. And these entitlements through the operations bundle, the access that you get to Pype, if these do become integrated into Build, it just means that now instead of managing them through the Pype website, now you can manage them through Build. It's not going to require an additional subscription or entitlement if you've already purchased the bundle. Hopefully that makes sense.
And so on top of that, now that we, the umbrella is Pype with all the tools within Pype, the modules of Pype, right? They're kind of to expand on that question, who is the target? Pype is its own software on its own, and you are a third party. All right, we'll get to that in a moment. So who is the target? Well, GCs certainly are, I suppose you could say, the #1 target audience for most definitely with AutoSpecs and Closeout, which is kind of what we've been focusing on today. But then also owners and subs. There's definitely those who are having to, just management of submittal processes and making sure that you're reducing your company's risk and minding your P's and Q's and capturing all of the information to get to closeout so that you get your retainage. It really does apply for all. But again, I will say, first and foremost, most likely your kind of a pre-con manager is going to be utilizing Pype for the submittal portion.
Yeah.
And then also the next question.
Alan, let me just go through the rest and then we'll tackle the Q&A, because I think
Sure.
if we go through Q&A, we won't be able to get through the rest of the content as we're going. So hopefully some of these questions will be answered through the demo, and then we'll tackle Q&A here at the end. So just a little bit longer here. I just definitely want to show some of the functionality here in Closeout, and then how it ties back into eBinder, and show some examples there. So, but yeah, as Alan was mentioning here, so we can import a directory of subcontractors in as well from our build project. I did this one manually, so I created Alan as his own company, Duluth HVAC as a mechanical subcontractor, and then through the closeout submittals, we can assign Alan to a specific line item. So what I was getting at with the 2357, should have a little.
Yep.
There it is. So for this item, we put a target date here. I assigned Alan as the responsible subcontractor for uploading his documents to this item. As I mentioned before, if this is already completed on the build side, when we import it in, it should contain all of the attachments and the approval status when we get to the closeout dashboard. So maybe you're 50% of the way through your submittals on the build side. You can continuously import and update this registry on the closeout side. And then what's nice about it, as we're putting documents and attaching documents to these items, maybe on build, or approving them and distributing them on the dashboard, this gives you an overview of the percentage of closeout you have complete. So it extracted that I have overall, there was 113 closeout submittals that were extracted from the spec that I uploaded, and we only attached documents and proved one of those. So we're actually a little bit less than 1% complete on our total closeout package. But as a general contractor managing this, it gives you that insight to see where you're at with closeout. You can quickly drill into things by either contractor or by category to see where your progress is. And then one of the best things about closeout is on the right side here. And I'm sorry, I keep fighting with this. I know no one can see it, but there's a little go-to meeting panel there. One of the best things about closeout is based on the directory that you upload, we can add, we can add or assign an email. Let's see, I don't know why this one's not showing here. But we can distribute an email out to all of the contractors that require an upload of a document in order to approve and close that item out. So yeah, I'm not sure why this isn't, am I just missing it one time? maybe because the only one that we have done here, we've already assigned the email. But through that contact, if you click the button to, let's go into emails here, we can send notifications out to our responsible contractors. And any of the open submittal items that they're assigned to, they're going to get a notification via email that says they have outstanding tasks to complete, to upload documents. You can attach multiple people to the email. So Alan was just the primary, but we can always add secondary users to that directory. And then I probably just got an email there that says, hey, you submitted a kickoff notification to Alan. So just recognition, confirming that they've got that email, and you can manage the notifications through there. On Alan's side, he would get an email with a link directly to the project that would navigate him directly to his open submittals, and then he can start to attach documents. He can change the status to say that the documents or the sub, let's show the status here. Sub submitted, to change the status, to update it. Then as the GC, so this is manually going through that scene.
As we're talking, I've got a flurry of emails, like from when we were in build. I have a notification that there's ball in court on my end for the 03 4500 precast architectural concrete. So, all this work you're doing, and this is in real time, this is being distributed, and we're, the activity is being executed.
So, all right, and once we go through that, the dashboard will keep track of what percentage is complete. So you can see as I change that to submitted, now we're at 2%. I don't know why that seems like that. It's maybe a little bit over 1, but we can track progress. We can see, hey, Alan's doing his job, but this Panels Inc. company doesn't have any of their submittals approved or closed. So it's just a really good dashboard to see where the status of your closeouts are. And this could reduce the time for your closeout process, chasing documents down from maybe to 50% to even a quarter of the time spent chasing down O&M manuals, warranty information, instructions, you name it. And then the last thing here, I know we're getting close here, we said only 30 minutes. But the last part here, eBinder. So I thought I had eBinder open. Okay, so again, same project here. Oh, I've got to sign back in. So I just created another project to create this eBinder package for turnover. Again, when you create this, there is an option to take all the information, the documentation that you have from closeout and populate your eBinder. And you can use different templates, but it will generate specific folders. And let me show you here. So there are some different templates to choose from. I think for this one, I just chose the typical closeout package and loaded that template. But then it's going to group based on that submittal information. It's going to group things into the correct folders. So all of the documentation, all of the files required for that project closeout, for that turnover, we can then store in this nice organized environment. And through eBinder, you have a few options. We can view this in the web. So if you sent a link out, you can share a link out to an owner and they get access to this dashboard, which they can then browse through the different folders. I think I only uploaded one file here, but by selecting the file, we can download it. Only PDFs can be viewed directly in the web interface. But the other options here, if I go back to eBinder, we can download it And this has a little customizable cover page and a table of contents to the same type of folder directory, but you can hand this over to an owner and it has hyperlinks to download all of the documents. So all of the information here is stored in the cloud, quickly accessible. Here, this is my turnover package I already created. So let me just go into downloads. I think I saw earlier someone asked to see an example of eBinder. So in that PDF, it creates sort of a generic looking report that you can customize, put your company logo, change the cover page, powered by Pype, but then you have your table of contents. I don't know if I had, when I created this one, it doesn't look like I had the file uploaded, or else it would show in, I can't remember which folder I put it in, but it would show us our contents. Let's go back to that. This shouldn't take that long to download the new one.
And what's nice, I'm browsing the package that we had created earlier. Everything is hyperlinked. So, I mean, it's really gonna expedite for your owners. Once you do the handover, they're gonna be very appreciative of the organization that you're giving them.
And let's go to create that. So if I go to create a new one, I just called this new test to create a new eBinder within the same project. But some of the upload options, so if you have all of your documents stored in one place on your computer, you can drag a whole folder structure, upload the folder structure and the subfolders directly in here. You can see you have other options. For some reason, this one's not connecting to my Pype Closeout, probably because I don't have that formatted, or it's not a complete closeout project yet. It hasn't been published, so I can't add that. But let's see. We can connect to the files if this is. So I've been having problems with this today. I don't know, haven't run into that before where I couldn't select our Imaginate account, but great timing for our presentation today. But you can grab the files and do the submittal items directly from. So maybe if you don't have it in Closeout, maybe you're good with the Closeout process directly in Build without managing it through Closeout. You can grab your files and your supporting documents directly from Autodesk Docs to create this eBinder. So a lot of flexibility. All of these products in their own regard are great products, but as you can see, there are some integrations and there's some data exchange that we can connect directly into our projects on the BIM 360 or ACC side to start to populate and utilize these products. So I'll leave it at that for now. I know it looks like there's a lot of questions coming in and we're running short on time. So Lori,
well, thankfully, I think we've knocked them out, most of them, and Harry has asked quite a few questions. I think just for reference, yes, it does. There is Procore connectivity. So to throw that out there, let me share my screen. All right. Are we back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so ultimately, just kind of to wrap up quickly, you're going to be able to do the manual tasks that you've done in the past with expeditiously. To put it, what I've experienced with other people who've utilized these tools, anecdotally, reducing untold amounts of time from days, taking the development of the middle registers and so on, taking potentially days if it's 1,000-page spec, et cetera, down to, I think, when Vince and I were working in this a few months ago, we had a fairly large spec that we were able to process and run through AutoSpecs within, minutes, if not in seconds, 30 seconds to a minute, potentially. So there's just reduced administrative tasks, and you're more organized, and you're really going to expedite that process both in the beginning phases, of course, with auto specs, and then in closeout, just a much more organized process. Yep. So ultimately, basically, as the Autodesk Construction Cloud Operations Bundle, you have enterprise access to, of course, Build, but then also to Pype. And when we say Build, of course, we mean docs as well. So ultimately, what you're doing is connecting entire construction lifecycle process from you're able to pull in the design phase, move into pre-construction, execute submittal logs and all the administrative to get kicked off, get that process moving on to your subs, organize, manage that process, and then ultimately wrap it up, bundle it up with the turnover package, and then for handover to your owners. So do we have any additional questions at this point?
No, nothing else from me, Alan. I don't think there are any other questions in here.